All right, let's bring in our Monday night political panel now. Former Chief of Staff to Bill Shorten, Cameron Milner, and former advisor to John Howard, David Gazard. Great to see you both. Always love this panel on a Monday. Now, let's start with US politics, because we're learning that Kamala Harris reportedly dropped $1 million to get Oprah Winfrey to one of her town hall events. This is back in September. This report is from the Washington Examiner. They say that the Harris campaign paid that amount of money to Winfrey's company, Harpo Productions. Their report also says that Harris spent, or her campaign spent, 6 figures on building a set for Kamala's appearance on the podcast Call Her Daddy. And then the campaign also reportedly spent up to $20 million on swing state concerts on the eve of the election, including on Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. Now, Cameron, from your experience in politics, and you've also run state campaigns for Labor, all this money on celebrity endorsements, but, I mean, and even Taylor Swift, but it looks like voters just saw through it.
Well, I think they did, and I think elites don't work and celebrities don't work, Sharri. I mean, it didn't work for Albanese with the Albanese voice. It tanked with Alan Joyce running that campaign, and it looked terrible for Kamala. Trump looked authentic, and Kamala handed the microphone to yet another Hollywood celebrity, another woke lefty on the stage. But this is much worse. This is much worse. If this is true, this is cash for comment on a grand scale. Cash for comment. Because we don't know whether they were just reading a line off an auto cue for money, or whether they actually believed what they were saying about Kamala Harris. And that would be really, really bad if that's actually the case. As I say, cash for comment, Kamala.
Yeah, it's a good line. David Gazard, the celebrities actually could have worked against Kamala Harris, given that cost of living and inflation was the biggest issue in the US election.
Cost of living, inflation, and it was the working class that really sort of said, hey, we need a leader who's in touch with our aspirations and our concerns. You couldn't really find anyone further away from those aspirations than elites living in Hollywood, who are paid really to pretend to be somebody else. You know, attending parties with P. Diddy on one weekend, and then telling you how to vote on the next. I mean, I think I'm with Cameron here. It's concerning too that Oprah doesn't sort of front up and say, well, I'm here as a friend. She has to be paid to appear, to tell people how to vote, which would make it even worse. But it really shows a campaign team hopelessly out of touch with what voters were telling them.
A lot of lessons to learn from the US election. I'm going to come back to Donald Trump a bit later in the show, because we have learnt this morning that he's excluded Mike Pompeo from his team. I'm going to come back to that with Kosha Gada. But I want to have a look at the fertility rate in Australia. Now, back in 2008, the average woman was having 2 children. But then in 2023, it fell to a record low of 1.5 children born to a woman over her lifetime. 1.5. Now, the Centre for Population is sounding the alarm over this. They're even predicting that school funding will need to be cut in the 2030s because they're saying there might not be enough students. Cameron, social and economic issues, the housing crisis, this is all being blamed.
Well, it's the long-term legacy of Albo's cost of living crisis, isn't it? I mean, we're living grocery prices and petrol and mortgages on a daily basis, but clearly parents are deciding that children who do cost a lot of money, I have 4 myself, so I can speak for that, but certainly children cost money and people are worried about the future, worried about the cost of living. So this is the long-term legacy of Albanese's failure on cost of living for Australia.
Because, you know, it's not even far off to think that this is the reason, David, because life is so expensive. Families just can't afford to have as many children as they once could.
This is a longer term trend, and it goes to people worrying about the effect of their children on the environment, which is sort of laughable given fertility rates in other countries. Don't forget that, you know, back in the mid 2000s, the then Treasurer was trying to arrest this with a baby bonus, something this government has explicitly ruled out. But it comes with the attendant problems. You have an ageing population consuming more health care, living for longer, and you've got less people entering the tax base, paying taxes to pay for all those services for the ageing population. So the the boomers are getting by on their savings at the moment, but it'll be a declining workforce and a radically changed tax system with taxes in other areas having to rise to pay for those bills in the future.